It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wide discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams.
Waking Up with Wesley is sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.
Hello there, South Mississippi, and thank you for waking up with Wesley. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. Well, we had a really nice start to our Thursday. Been enjoying the sunrise view. Let's take a look at our tower cam time lapse from Biloxi. It has been a beautiful start to the day there and across most of the Mississippi coast. We've been enjoying these nice conditions. We are expecting to see mostly rain-free morning. The futurecast for this morning is showing little to no rain, so we're going to see many rain-free hours as we start the day. However, later today, there will be a chance for some of those pop-up showers and storms. I don't know if we're going to see as many of them today as we have seen in the last few days, but eventually by tonight, things should eventually quiet down. Here's a live view outside in Biloxi by the beachfront. Enjoy that view right there by the lighthouse. Just a nice looking start, very inviting. Makes you want to just go out and spend some time on the beach with it looking so pretty. But like we said, today there are going to be some pop-up showers and storms. It won't be completely dry everywhere. But this is probably going to be the beginning of this pattern change as we transition from a wetter pattern that we had the last few days to eventually a bit of a hotter pattern that's coming in by this weekend. And over the next few days, kind of that transition in between the two weather patterns. It is going to generally favor more heat and less rain. And some of that heat might be hot enough to turn kind of dangerous in some places. More on that in a moment, but let's talk about what we had a few days ago. On Tuesday and Wednesday, we had this tropical wave, which was sitting near the coast. On this radar recap from yesterday, that tropical wave was located about right here. And that's why on the left-hand side of it, you had these rain showers and storms kind of rolling down toward our coast. And on the right-hand side of it, you had these rain showers and storms rolling ashore. Caused quite a bit of rain near parts of Alabama yesterday, and we saw some of those on the Mississippi coast too. But look at where that swirl went. Instead of being on the Alabama coast, it rolled to the Alabama-Georgia line by the middle of the day yesterday, and it continued to move off toward the east the later you went into Wednesday. So now that tropical wave is no longer anywhere near our Mississippi coast, that is probably going to begin a trend toward a less wet weather pattern. So that's what we can do to get those rain chances to kind of decrease a little bit from the last few days. Now, what can we do to get those temperatures to come up? Well, it's going to be introducing an area of high pressure. So as we see this area of high pressure on the map, there's kind of high pressure west of us and high pressure east of us today. But as we go from today to tomorrow, those highs get a little bit closer. And as we go from tomorrow to Saturday, they're going to kind of merge right on top of our region. Now, this is not the absolute strongest high pressure, so it's not going to completely squash and eliminate our rain chances. So we're never going to get to a 0% rain chance with this type of high pressure. It'd have to be a bit stronger, and it'd have to be directly on top of the Mississippi coast. But it is going to be strong enough to help our temperatures to increase. So that's why you're looking at highs today across the area in the lower and middle 90s. Along the coast might have generally lower 90s, and then areas to the north of Interstate 10 might have generally to the middle 90s, which is not too far from normal for this time of year, maybe a little hotter than usual. I will tell you, this is the first time this month that we've seen temperatures in the middle 90s out, especially as we go to the next few days. We're going to notice those temperatures kind of creeping up a little bit more. On the coast, you got a high of around 91 today and tomorrow, and then you go to about 94 on Saturday, Sunday. Inland areas, a high of around 95 today and tomorrow, going to 96 on Saturday and Sunday. So gradually seeing the temperature increase, and by the time we get to this weekend, it probably will be some of the hottest weather we will have seen so far this month. We had it last month. We had plenty of days in the mid and upper 90s last month and the month before that. But so far, this first half of August has been pretty kind to us temperature-wise. It hasn't really brought us too many heat waves. this weekend will probably be kind of a little bit of a taste of what an August heat wave has to offer. The numbers you're looking at right now, that's just temperature. That's only half the story. We know on the Gulf Coast it's always humid and muggy, and so that makes that heat feel even hotter. Sometimes that feeling of the heat can lead to danger. We call it the heat index, and in some places there's a dangerous heat index forecast for South Mississippi. Today, as of this recording, as of this live stream, it's during the 8 o'clock hour. The only place underneath that heat advisory for today, Thursday, August 14th, is southern Hancock County. So places like Diamond Head, Waveland, Bay St. Louis, maybe you're going to see a dangerous heat index today. But the rest of our area, you don't see that. I would imagine that we're going to see more expanse of these hot weather alerts as we get closer to the weekend. Today, we see them north of us in the Pine Belt, west of us over portions of Baton Rouge and New Orleans in the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain. And you don't really see too many of them over the Mississippi coast other than in southern Hancock County. And like I said, the reason you're under a heat advisory there is because the heat index could possibly climb upwards of 108 degrees. For many of us, this is not that dangerous. Why? Because most of us practice common sense heat safety precautions. We already know to stay hydrated on a hot day. Most of us already know to get breaks in the air conditioning on a hot day. But for those few individuals who might forget, for whatever reason, those are the people that are at danger from the weather today. Like I said, as the heat increases over the weekend, we're probably going to see those hot weather alerts expanding on the map to cover more surface area, cover more real estate. So while only a few of us in the 6 southernmost counties are under a heat advisory today, maybe more of us will be under a heat advisory by this weekend. Like I said, the rain chances, they never drop all the way to zero, but they are generally lower. I do fully expect there to be a few pop-up storms each day, but maybe not as much rain potential as what we saw last couple of days when that tropical wave was closer to our coast. Speaking of the tropics, why not take a little look at things out there in the Atlantic, the Gulf, and the Caribbean? So for your Thursday tropical update, as of the time of this live stream, 8:51 a.m., there are 5 storms. Andrea, Barry, Chantel, Dexter, and Aaron. There is not a 6th storm yet, but maybe there's one coming. Fernand is the 6th name, and there is an area that continues to move just to the west of the Yucatan Peninsula. It has a low chance to become a depression or storm in the southwest Gulf, also known as the Bay of Campeche. Of course, there's Aaron, which gets a lot of attention since it's a named system in the Atlantic. We'll take a look at Aaron as of 8 a.m. Thursday morning. The satellite looking pretty impressive with this tropical storm. Last few days, it was lopsided, fighting wind shear, fighting dry air on its eastern side. But now that enhanced thunderstorm activity that we find developing with this storm is developing, and it's concentrically located with the center of circulation. So when you get that going on, when you have the storms co-located with the center, then the intensity can really start to take off. And the intensification process is expected to continue. Aaron is already a little bit stronger today than it was yesterday, with max winds of 50 miles an hour, pressure down to 1,002. Now that was the update as of 4 a.m. Central Time. The National Hurricane Center will provide a new update around 9 or 10 a.m. Central Time. And I would imagine they're probably going to find Aaron a little bit stronger than whatever they found it at 4, because the satellite presentation sure looks impressive enough. And even when we switch over from the visible to the infrared satellite, we can see there's quite a bit of deep thunderstorm activity there. This color table you're looking at is showing these red colors there. And even right there near the center, a little bit of if we zoom in a little bit more, you can see a little bit of a pink color there, indicating some really tall clouds. And so the taller the thunderstorm cloud, which in a hurricane we call a convective tower, but the taller a thunderstorm cloud typically indicates the stronger that thunderstorm, the more energy in that thunderstorm, because it's got strong updrafts with it. And so when you have those strong thunderstorm complexes developing near the core of the storm, that's a pretty good indication that the intensity is about to take off. Now, this forecast track that you're looking at, of course, will become outdated once the National Hurricane Center issues an update to it in the next hour or two from this live stream. But as you can see, the latest information does show it reaching Category 1 hurricane strength tomorrow. So Erin is prompted to become the first hurricane of the season by tomorrow. And then it's actually going to become the first major hurricane of the season by this weekend. You know, we showed this forecast cone a few days ago. It sure looked different because remember, it only goes out 5 days. And a couple of days ago on Tuesday, 5 days only got us to Saturday. So we were only really able to see this part of the cone here. But now that it is Thursday and we can see 5 days, that gets us well into next week. And now we can see more of the future, more of the forecast track. And that north turn sure looks a bit more evident at this point in time, which is what we want to see. As far as being folks from the Gulf Coast, we want to see it turn north, and every day we keep checking the information, it keeps showing the north turn coming. We just have to wait for it to happen. We're not going to see it turn tomorrow. We might not see it turn very much on Saturday, but by the time we get to Sunday, there will be more of a northerly movement than a westerly movement. So we're waiting and we're watching for that turn to occur. The reason that's going to happen is because to the north of Erin, there is a high pressure system that is steering the storm toward the west right now. So that's why it's continuing to move mostly due west. But once we get to the weekend, there will be a bit of an opening in that high on the western side, and that's going to help to steer Erin toward the north before it gets to the Gulf. So it won't have an opportunity to get to the Gulf Coast. It will be able to turn northward around that high pressure that's steering it. So that's great news, as you don't find any impacts from Erin to the Gulf Coast region based on today's information, and hopefully that trend continues. We'll talk a little bit about the other area in the West Caribbean, which has some moisture with it. It's no longer in the West Caribbean, it's in the Southwest Gulf. Yesterday it was in the West Caribbean, but it's going to continue to move toward the northwest and eventually hit the Texas-Mexico border, perhaps by tomorrow. Once that gets off the water and over land, that ends the potential for that to develop. So you won't see that anymore by the time we get to Saturday. But before Saturday, while it is still over the water, it has a chance to become a depression or storm. Thankfully and fortunately, it is not expected to bring any impact to the Mississippi coast, but it could bring some rain impacts to other areas to our west, near Texas and near Mexico. Of course, looking off to the east, by the time we get to the weekend and early next week, we're going to be watching a major hurricane not too far from the Bahamas, not too far from Bermuda. The end of the 5-day forecast track as of today is around next Monday or next Tuesday, so we'll lose that cone. But we still have the modeling information that goes further into the future than 5 days. And the models are showing a big, powerful, major system that is offshore of the East Coast and continues to move toward the north. So good news with that. As we take a closer look at the West Gulf, the southwestern Gulf, we can see our modeling showing that this is trying to spin up here. That area that will hit Texas and Mexico, this is actually called Invest 98L. And you can see it does have a good amount of circulation with it as it moves toward the Texas coast by tomorrow. And you can see some of those tropical rain bands. You know, if it actually becomes a storm, there could be some wind impacts there. But primarily, it's not expected to become like this major windstorm, no major hurricane, but perhaps just a depression or storm, which could still put out a good amount of rain over portions of Texas as it continues to drift toward the north and west. But fortunately, not looking at much of an impact for our local area from that. But if we take a look at the latest computer modeling for rain over those areas between today, tomorrow, and Saturday, most of the rain might wind up happening offshore. So that's good news for those places that are on the Texas and Mexico coast. Maybe they don't get hit with, more than an inch or two of rain. They might find less than an inch of rain. That's the GFS model. We can switch to the European model, and kind of the same thing holds true. Where do we find the heaviest rain? Offshore, those yellow colors. And once you see the system moving toward land, you can see rain amounts around a ½ inch to up to about an inch. And like I said, if it does become a storm, then there could be some wind impacts with that as well. We'll take a look back at Aaron. I know we keep kind of switching back and forth between storms, but this is a look at the 5-day forecast cone with the computer models overlaid. The European model in green, the GFS model in yellow, and you can see that by the time we get to next week, they both show pretty good agreement with the system taking that turn to the north. The European a little bit more west, GFS a little bit more east, but in general they both agree that this is not hitting the Gulf Coast, and then before you know it, it moves to the north of Bermuda and it's out of Dodge. We can also show even more than just those two models. We can plot all of these spaghetti model lines which show very high confidence. Look at how thin the NHC cone is and how tightly packed all of these red lines are. So very high agreement on this system and its track, which will eventually take a turn to the north. Now you're looking at most of the lines, and most of them show that track toward the north as we go toward Thursday of next week. So when they draw the next portion of the cone, it looks like most of the lines are most tightly clustered in this area here. So that means that when they issue the next forecast track update, you're probably going to see the cone extended this way. Now, do understand that not every model is in agreement, and there are some that show a little bit more of a westerly track here, but that is not the majority. The majority of lines are a bit more to the east. So far, so good. It is something to keep an eye on, but like I said, nothing that points this directly toward the Gulf Coast based on the majority of the information we're seeing. So Aaron is still poised to become a major hurricane in the Atlantic, and we're waiting to see when and if that turn will happen to the north, but we'll have to wait a few more days before that turn becomes more evident. So keep an eye on Aaron this week as we monitor its progress. And also, we monitor that Caribbean wave 98L, which is no longer in the Caribbean. I guess I should update that. Let's say southwest Gulf. Or how about we'll just call it what it is, 98L. 98L to bring rains to Texas, Mexico. So 98L is that wave in the western or southwestern Gulf. As we know, hurricane season, of course, reaches its peak every September. So as we move into the next few weeks, it's no surprise to see that increase in activity. And we're probably going to see more and more systems get named. So I hope that as they do get named, they have nothing to do with the Mississippi coast. The good news is that this coming weekend, we actually find no tropical weather, no significant tropical weather on the Mississippi coast. So if you're making plans for this weekend, it's just going to be a hot one with maybe a few spotty showers and storms, but no big storms hitting our coast this weekend. And like I said, hopefully that trend continues for the remainder of hurricane season. Well, that'll pretty much do it for today's edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. Have a good one, and we'll see you again next time.
Waking Up with Wesley has been sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.